Welcome to the Good Intention Show, coming to you live on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intention Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions one intention at a time. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Yes, this is the Good Intention Show, where you will meet people who live life intentionally and hear about things they're not telling you in the mainstream media. And now, here's the truth seeker, the snake charmer, a legend in his own mind, broadcasting live all over the universe, your host, Mr. Tim Ray.
Welcome to the Good Intention Show. I am your host, Tim Ray, on the UI Media Network, and we have a show for you today. I have so many folks coming in from the Vax movement, which is basically our advocates of what's going on in the vaccine industry and to our children and to humanity as we speak and as I speak here today live. It's going to be so informative and so fascinating because we got some incredible people here. We have Tommey, the original Vaxxed, going around. She's the mother of a child who's been, I'm not sure if it was isolated vaccination, but we'll find out. A mother of a child who was harmed by the vaccine, who's been around for years now, sharing their information on the road in a bus, which we're going to talk about here shortly. And also a new Videa, I think I pronounced that right. Vadia. I wasn't even close. Right, yeah. Vadia. And he is the tech engineer as well as been helping assist in getting this new movie called Vaxxed II, which launches, or I should say is opening here next weekend, next Saturday and Sunday, which we'll be talking about. And of course, Tia Severino. It's got my accents right?
It's okay. As long as you butcher everybody's name, we'll be good.
Guys, and she's in studio with us live here today. And we're going to be discussing what's going on with the vaccines. But before we do, I want to mention a couple of things coming up here this weekend, November 1st to the 3rd. We have What Women Want Conference right here in Atlanta, and the UI Media Network will be covering that. And we'll be discussing entrepreneurs for women on what they can be doing to get the good word out there and basically get our country and our world straightened out. Finally, right? Takes a woman. So on top of that, we also have the Vax. We're covering the Vax program. I should say you have a big Saturday event coming up next weekend. And also on Sunday, the premiere of Vaxxed II, I should say, will be showing. And also we'll be giving tickets away today, guys. And we'll tell you how you get your tickets, a pair of tickets right here, a pair of tickets for Vaxxed. And you'll be able to win that today. All you got to do is put in Vaxxed II in your messaging, comment, and like UI Media Network if you haven't yet already, and you can win a pair of tickets there. We'll be going through that later on today, a little bit more so. Last thing I want to mention is Doctors Who Rock and the Get Your Life Back Now will be there on November 15th down in Florida, Orlando, Florida, covering that as well, and being part of something that's all about integrative medicine moving forward, which is our future. All this is our future, and it's all tied together. So here you're waking up on the UI Media Network along with everyone else who understands how we got to be preventative. And being preventative is sometimes being educated on what's truly going on. So time to get out of the dark, step out of the dark and into the light of knowledge and information so you can make better decisions for you and, more importantly, for your children who can't. So, well, let me bring in our first guest, Tia, and she is here. I think we're going to bring everybody in all at one time, can't we? All right, let's bring everybody in all at one time. Let's go like, pow, there they are, all right? Boom. So, hello, everybody. Polly, Anu, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Well, wonderful. And Tia, I'm so glad you guys are here. We have so much to cover, and I'm going to try to go very quickly because there's so much going on and so much been happening since, I think last time I saw you, Polly, was maybe it was a year ago here at the CDC. When I think there was the bus there was driving, and I'm trying to think of
3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yeah, that was 2016 October.
Tia, no way.
Yes,
it's been that long. It seems like just last year.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's been a lot going on this movement, and we'll talk about our progress and your progress in reference to getting the good word out. Where do you all think we are? But first, I want to hear Tia, if you could give us a quick summary, just for our listeners and viewers who may have not heard of Vax before and nor heard of what how harmful vaccines can be. Tell us what happened in a few minutes here. What happened with the original Dr. Thompson coming out stating that the vaccines, MMR vaccination, may cause autism, who worked for the CDC?
All right. Well, back in 2000 and I believe it was 2015, Dr. William Thompson picked up the telephone and called Brian Hooker, Dr. Brian Hooker, and began confessing to him in a series of phone calls that he and his colleagues had lied and covered up data on the MMR study that was published in 2004 that the CDC put out, that was done at the CDC. Dr. William Thompson was one of the lead scientists on that study. And what they had discovered with that study was that there was a significant increased risk for children developing autism when they received the MMR according to the CDC's schedule, which is between 12 and 18 months. So they looked at two groups of kids. One group got the MMR when the CDC says you should get it. The other group got it after they were 3 years old, and they found a significant increased risk. This was especially prevalent in the African-American males, and this was very troubling, and the higher-ups at the CDC basically said you got to cover it up. So they spent 2 years behind closed doors trying to crunch the numbers on that thing to make that signal go away. Eventually, they just decided to leave it out altogether. And like I said, Dr. Thompson began confessing this information to Dr. Brian Hooker. Dr. Brian Hooker then contacted Andrew Wakefield, and they began working on this film, which is Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe. And Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe weaves together these telephone conversations between Dr. Thompson and Dr. Hooker, along with the actual human impact of that MMR vaccine on many, many children in the United States and across the world. Paulie's son, Billy, was featured in the film. He received the MMR. It was the only vaccine that he received, and that night he had a seizure.
That was isolated.
I will not tell Paulie's story, but that is her connection to this story, and so his story is in the film Vaxxed. There's also another story of Temple Ely, who is a twin son of Sheila Ely, and he and his twin sisters went to get their vaccines that day, and the nurse accidentally gave Temple both of the MMRs along with a DTaP and I think another vaccine. And Temple had she didn't vaccinate her other daughter. His twin did not get the vaccine, so he got 2 doses, and he has severe autism. And his sister is fluent in 3 languages and plays the piano, and it's just amazing.
So this cover-up literally is a cover-up with the CDC, with the companies who produce the vaccination, like Merck, and the people within the CDC. And Thompson, to this day, still works at the CDC.
He does. He was supposed to retire last November, I thought, but apparently they've kept him on.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
Yeah, you keep that contract non-disclosure in their place, right? So, and then you had Senator Posey got involved with all the documents were sent there, and they were supposed to expose this on the representative floor, and that never happened. And so there's much more to this scandal and cover-up than most people realize. And I think if people just started there, they would start unweaving the threads on the blanket to see exactly how far down and the corruption goes on this level. But nevertheless, if you never heard this before, that's the beginning of the story, Vaxxed. Now it takes us to where we are today with a new movie coming out called Vaxxed II, because the original movie was not allowed to be shown. Nobody was allowed to see it. It was shut down at Tribeca. It was shut down at that point where it was not to be exposed.
Well, that's interesting because it was in theaters for 2 years, which no mainstream films are ever in theaters that long. It played to sold out shows. I mean, it was the movie that they didn't want anyone to see, and yet it played probably for a year and 11 months longer than it would have been shown in theaters if it had been screened.
And that's karma for you, right? So, Polly, Tommy, you're a staple now in getting the good word out. Your face is out there. Mothers identify with you with their autistic children because you're the one speaking up on not only their behalf but everyone's potential behalf who may be getting a vaccine for the children. So, Polly, your motivation to still get the good word out, and that was the motivation behind Vaxxed II. I'd like to hear a little bit about that, because I know a lot of folks know your story who are listening, but I want to advance that to another level of information here. So what was why this is so important, Vaxxed II?
Okay, so basically, while Vaxxed I was playing in the theatres, Tia brilliantly described all of that, of what actually happened, we found very, very quickly that parents wanted to tell their story. And it became a few parents to lines and lines and lines of them. We didn't have enough hours in the day to record all of these stories. So after a year and a half of being on the bus and getting over 7,500 signatures on the bus and stories either written or recorded, the boys here, the tech boys, decided to put together a 1.5-hour documentary cataloguing what we saw on the bus, which was undeniable. And possibly, I'm so glad that we did this. I'm so glad that we did this, because science tells everybody that the vaccines are safe and effective, that there's no such thing as a Billy catching autism from a vaccine. It's all genetic. Well, what we found on the road was the opposite to this. We found that this genetic autism that our boys are getting following this vaccines is not seen in the unvaccinated. So it's only seen in the vaccinated that you get autism at that certain age. We saw the undeniable health of the vaccinated. We saw families, same parents, vaccinated their children, injury, stop vaccinating their children, perfect health. And what we discovered is that autism is about that much of the problem out there from vaccines. Paralysis, death, everywhere. To answer your question before I go on for an hour, what we're doing with Vaxxed II is giving parents the informed consent that the doctors should have given us all.
And you bring up a critical point, and Paul, if you want to follow up on this question too, is the doctor's role. Now, Andy Wakefield was the original doctor who actually exposed the MMR vaccination way back when, and lost his license for speaking his truth to that degree. But as with everyone else, life goes on, people move forward, and things are still being exposed. But I think the biggest question a lot of folks have who are new to this, and it's not that people are the anti-vaxxers, and you get these sides, the vaxxers, the anti-vaxxers. I think the biggest question, I think the invisible aspect of why people maybe have a hard time understanding it, is that it doesn't happen to every kid who gets the MMR vaccination or gets a vaccination. But could you explain a little bit about how all vaccinations do damage, even though it may not be seen, and how people can understand that I may not get an autistic child from the vaccination, but there is vaccine damage being done? And we'll talk about solutions later on, but I wanted to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, it really, again, what we discovered on the road. The unvaccinated, and you know what we mean when we say unvaccinated, they've had no vaccines at all, do not have any of the issues that the vaccinated do. So, for example, people say, well, my daughter, she had the MMR, she's absolutely fine. No, she's not. I can guarantee you this. If you're listening right now and you've had the MMR vaccine, your gut is not as it should have been before you had the vaccine. That is a fact. So don't tell me your daughter's absolutely fine, because I guarantee she's constipated or has these gut issues, and she thinks it's normal because she knows no different. We've seen this on the road, and remember, all these allergies, asthma, all these inhalers you're all carrying around, you do not see that in the families that have given their children no vaccines. That's got to be looked at. You've got to wake up and see that, because it's night and day, is it not? Anu,
it's totally night and day.
So Anu, what Polly's saying, and perhaps you could echo this, and is we'll take a break first, but hold on to this question, Anu, that this autism, basically brain damage of our children, is a small percentage of the effects that not just the MMR vaccination, but all vaccinations actually cause our children, cause ourselves going forward. So when we come back, we can all chime in on how widespread is this, on which vaccinations are more harmful than others, and what are the actual effects or the damages or the symptoms of vaccine damage, and why. And we'll get into why the media, why this is not being covered. It seems like you guys uncovered this through the MMR vaccinations, and this has opened up Pandora's box. And now the truth needs to come out. Guys, we're talking to Polly, Tommey, I'm going to say Tia Severino. Severino, not too bad. And, of course, Anu Vidya.
Say your name, Anu.
It's a new Vidya, but it's all good.
Vidya.
I mean,
All right,
I know it's a difficult name.
Right. You'll be known as Anu from now on, and Tia. All right. Polly told me I got down. All right, guys. More to come. Stay tuned. We have so much information coming out right now. Start sharing this on Facebook. Go to uimediaapp.com. Get the good word out. Go to all our other channels on the 99.1 FM radios, guys. Start calling people up, getting the dial in right now. This is going to be information that could save yourself and save your life of your child. So stay tuned. Be right back.
Are you ready to be the hero of your own story? It's time to put the power of your health back into your hands. Join us for our free 25-day journey to get your life back now from chronic illness. Our doctors and experts will guide you back to optimal health.
One of the important things to realize is that the body is constantly wearing itself out. So you get new cones in the macula of your eye every 48 hours. The lining of your gut's replaced every 3 days. The skin you're sitting in this morning is 6 weeks old. Your liver is 8 weeks old. Your nervous system's 8 months old, etc. Because we're constantly wearing ourselves out, we have to make new cells. So chronic disease only occurs when you lose the ability to make new cells at work. Let me say that one more time. Chronic disease only occurs when you lose the ability to make new cells at work. Which leads us directly to the question, well, what's it take to make a new cell that works?
Go to www.getyourlifebacknow.live and begin your journey today.
All right, we are back live with Anu, Polly, and Tia here from the Vaxxed Team and Vaxxed II team, I should say now, the new movie that's premiering next week, guys. This is right around the corner on Saturday and Sunday, one here in Atlanta and all over the country, which we'll talk about in a minute. But we left off on the vaccine damage is much more widespread, and that anybody who gets a vaccine, there's a certain level of damage, whether they see it in symptoms immediately or not, there is vaccine damage, which, of course, you all discovered this as you went through this the first movie, Vaxxed I, with the MMR vaccination damage with autism. So, can you give us some other, you mentioned a few, Polly, but for example, like SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. Most people, they don't know why, or at least they say they don't know why. Doctors don't know why. All of a sudden, the infant will die. But what are the commonalities? Anu, do you want to mention, or Tia, or anybody want to mention why that's the association with SIDS now with vaccines?
Well, again, we're just reporting back what the parents are telling us. And remember, there's no better expert on that baby than the parents itself.
Absolutely.
So the parents are reporting that their babies were perfectly healthy, babbling, speaking. We have footage of these babies before they go and have their vaccines, and then they start to either feel a little unwell and then die, or they die almost straight away. And the police are called, and they're treated as if they're the people that did it, because guess what, people, they will hold their hand up. It is not the vaccines.
Right.
So
yeah. The other problem with the term SIDS is that it's a non-diagnosis, if you really think about it. It's the equivalent of saying, we don't know what happened, we're just going to give it a name. It's like someone falling over and saying that it's a sudden gravity, deficiency or something. Like, it's not really explaining why the cause of it was. So when you hear SIDS, people are like, oh yeah, it was SIDS, and they just let it go. And it's like, no, it's a non-diagnosis.
And when we remember this, very important, when we interviewed Dr. Franz, the pediatrician who stopped vaccinating the first anyone under a year, no SIDS. Not a coincidence.
Yeah.
No.
It's a shame because if you don't diagnose it, then you can't look into why it's actually occurring. If you keep it a general diagnosis like that, from a liability perspective, that makes logical sense. Nobody wants to be accountable for it.
It's worse than that. I'd like to point to the story of Katie Kloves, who her little daughter Evie died after her vaccines. And she actually found a neurologist that could do a proper autopsy on her. And as soon as they started to look into and find evidence that the vaccines played a role, the medical examiner in that case basically said, I am going to change the cause of death to positional asphyxiation because it is clear that you are trying to establish a case with the vaccine court. So I am basically going to blame you for your child's death in order to shut this thing down. Medical examiners are not looking into any other possible causes of death in these SIDS cases. And you asked, what is the mechanics of what is going on? I can touch a little bit on that. There is something called a cytokine storm, which is created in the brain. It is inflammation in the brain. Now, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I do know some scientists and doctors. I have a good memory. So what is happening is that these vaccines have things in them like aluminum, which is a neurotoxin. They put it in there as an adjuvant. It is there to stimulate an immune response. We're going to come back to that later. So remember that. Aluminum stimulates an immune response.
Right.
They also have another ingredient in vaccines called polysorbate 80, which is, or polysorbate 20 or tween. Those are all sorbate. Sorbitol opens the blood-brain barrier. That allows the aluminum to get into the brain. And like I said, it creates a cytokine storm. The brain's just going like crazy. And it can also shut down the respiratory function in children that are that young. So
why are some kids react differently than other kids? Some don't react.
You keep asking that question.
Yeah,
okay, I want to make one point very clear. Think about the purpose of a vaccine. It is designed to stimulate the immune system, okay? That is its exact definition. That is what it is designed to do. So
designed to cause trouble.
It is designed to create inflammation and instigate an immune response. Now, when you have a little tiny baby that is a day old, and by the way, in the United States, we have the highest day one infant mortality in the developed world. And we're one of the only countries that is injecting our babies with vitamin K, which has 250 micrograms of aluminum, and hepatitis B, which has 225 micrograms of aluminum on the first day of life.
With all your research, Tia and Polly and New, do you believe the vaccines are the main reason why we have the highest infant death mortality?
100%.
Absolutely. If you look at the charts of the death rates of the mortality rates of infants for the developed countries, we fall dead last. And we also give more vaccines than any other country. But I want to come back to, because you keep saying, why do some and not others? Every single person who receives a vaccine, regardless of their age, regardless of the vaccine, their immune system is being artificially stimulated in a way that nature never produces, unless you're doing an oral live virus vaccine, which, by the way, can cause the disease. If you're doing an injection of a dead or attenuated virus or bacterial parts, you are stimulating the body's immune system for that particular pathogen in a way that it will never experience in nature. Okay, so you are setting the body's immune system up to look for that pathogen in that form and in that delivery method. It's never going to arrive that way.
It almost seems to have the opposite effect of its purpose.
Look up original antigenic sin. Okay, this is nowhere more prevalent than with the DTP vaccine or the DTaP vaccine or the Tdap. Okay, and as a matter of fact, the MMR was not the vaccine that created the whole anti-vaccine movement. For your information, DTP is the reason that we have the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, which was passed in 1986, and that is because so many parents were watching their children develop seizure disorder, autism, severe, like all kinds of issues, and they were suing the manufacturers successfully. So they were trying to set up a no-fault system where people who were injured would be able to get compensated directly. It was originally, I think, set for the pharmaceutical industry. They were going to participate in it, and they went to Congress and said, if you do this, we will go out of business. We will never be able to keep making vaccines. And so what they did is they set up a trust fund, and now our government taxes every single vaccine that's given, and those taxes collected on those vaccines go into a super fund to pay out people who are injured or killed, and $4 billion have been paid out in the last 30 years from that fund.
Anu, this is phenomenal information for people hearing it for the first time. Basically, we have this setup of our governmental system who's supposed to protect us from harm, is now actually given these manufacturing companies other vaccines protection where they're not even held liable. So why would they ever want to create a clean vaccine at this point, ever since 1986 or whenever that was? So, Nu, I'm sure you're aware of this now. So what have you seen since then on the road with Polly and with Tia and everyone else and Del and the rest and Andy that proves to you without a doubt that these vaccines are not only creating and helping assist with autism, but all these other symptoms of vaccine damage that you've heard and seen?
Well, for one thing, I want to go back really quick and just touch on one more thing, is that when we talk about, because Tia explained very perfectly, like, what the vaccine is actually meant to do, right? It's supposed to induce a response. Now, I want people to start clearing up the euphemisms that we're using, right? You're stimulating an unnatural response. What we're actually doing is tricking the immune system into working, right? I mean, if you're tricking the immune system to work, it's like a prank gone wrong. You know what I mean? You don't know what the outcome is going to be. You've all watched, the prank shows where pranks go wrong. That's essentially what's happening with the immune system. But to answer your question, when I came on the tour and, when I first came on the tour, honestly, like before I joined the team, I joined literally 3 days before the bus tour actually started. When I first came on, I actually, on the way to Austin to start the bus tour, I watched the film Vaxxed. And I was like, okay, I'm on board with this whole idea of the MMR vaccine, causing regressive, isolated autism. I'm totally get with you guys on that. But what I said to Polly and the rest of the team here is that I don't know, and I'm not sure about this whole vaccines causing other injuries. I'm not sure about this, and I don't know if I really believe it. But shortly as we were out on tour, I mean, it was not but a week in, we started getting all these stories, and I started realizing I had no clue what I was talking about. And so when we started seeing the pictures and videos and the testimonials of these people that have actually been through this stuff, and you realize the stark difference between when they were healthy, they get the vaccine and something happens right after. You can scream correlation causation all day long and invoke that mantra, but at a certain point, you've got to start asking questions about the incident, the event that actually changed it. And that's honestly what gets me to believe that there's something happening there, right? And we've been through it all. We've been through the gamut. Scientists have done studies, and they always come back with that there isn't enough conclusive data. The problem with that statement is that most people think that when they say that, they mean that there isn't. And that's just not true. The wording, the scientific wording is that they aren't getting enough data, which means they're not doing enough science.
Yeah.
So when I look at a product that's happening, there's an event happening, and then something after that is like really causing injury, or there's suddenly a healthy baby starts having autoimmune problems, rashes, all this stuff, I'm like, there's definitely something going on with the event.
Polly, why do you think what Nu just said to you, why do you think that there hasn't been any testing from the vaccination companies, from the CDC, of the effects of vaccines? Has there been ever a test of how they would affect somebody?
Well, first of all, what we uncovered is obvious now why they will never do the science on the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, which people have been calling out for years. Please don't, we aren't the people that started this. There's been people, because of social media, we're able to do this. There's been people shouting about this for a long time. But if you just see from the people study on the road, the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, it's clear as night and day that that's why they don't want to do it, because it's completely game over. And massive apologies to all the people that they've killed and maimed around the world from this vaccination.
We just had Brenda mention if vaccines were toys, they'd be all recalled. So, it's amazing. Yeah. So there's a deeper agenda here, and we get back from break. Let's go to the deeper agenda, and I want to know why, if this is all true, from the vaccinations, the damage to be done widespread now from SIDS, all the Gardasil, all the things that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Why is the media not covering this? Where is our advocates, the fourth state, to cover what's happening not only to ourselves, but to our children. Guys, this is incredible information. I please, if you haven't shared this, get this out now. We're going to go deeper into what the vaccine damages, what it can do to your children and to yourself and your families, but also where's the media? Why is this not being heard around the world? Why do a handful of folks who are passionate enough to dedicate their lives to try to make a change in awareness, they have to do it? Where's our assistance now? Guys, more to come. We're with the Vaxxed team here. It's incredible information. Again, share this now. If you guys want tickets, type in Vaxxed II in your comments, and like uimedianetwork.com, go to UI Media Network on Facebook as well, and you could appreciate that, and we will get you out. We'll pick, people are here, 2 tickets right here. We'll get your hands on those tickets soon enough once we go through the list, but type in Vaxxed II, and we'll know you want a ticket. All right, guys, see you back in a minute. Don't go anywhere. More to come.
Download the UI Media Smart app at uimediaapp.com to watch and listen to all your favorite shows anytime from anywhere in the world. Shows that enrich, entertain, educate, and feeds the conscious cells throughout your body. We bring you never-heard-before topics in health, inspiration, music, psychics, numerology, current affairs, controversies, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.uimediaapp.com and start raising your frequency now.
All right, guys, we are back live with the Vaxxed team. We have Tia Severino, we have Polly Tommey, and a new Vadia.
Vadia.
Thank you. Vadia. I should know that because Suchi's. It sounds like a Russian
Well, you know
name,
what?
you know?
Listen, it's just a new. Everyone knows him as a new.
And what's most important is why you guys are getting the good word out. Why is the mainstream media trying to stop you? I don't want to hear about this. So first of all, Tia, you want to mention why mainstream media is not covering this, has not been covering, or not allowing it to be covered?
Well, I mean, look up Project Mockingbird, for one, which is the CIA infiltration of our news media. Look at the fact that it's now legal to propagandize the Americans. Obama did that for us. So the short and simple answer is that they cannot go up against their sponsors. The pharmaceutical industry is the #1 advertiser on all, both cable and broadcast networks. In any non-election year, I think it's 70% of their budget comes from, their advertising budget comes from the pharmaceutical industry. So they absolutely cannot, and they are very much, they're bought and paid for by the same people that are buying and paying for our politicians.
But it almost seems there has to be some type of coordination, Anu or Polly, that you got the print media, you got the radio media, you got the television media, you got the talking heads. Everyone's saying the same thing. Vaccines are fine. These people don't know what they're talking about. You have politicians saying the same thing. You have CEOs of hospitals saying the same thing. Is this something that just out of ignorance, or is it coordination?
But who pays all of those wages of everybody you've just named?
90%.
Sponsors.
Yeah.
It's follow the money. That's all you got to do is follow the money. Doctors get payouts if they vaccinate our children. Politicians admit. Big Pharma's big in the politicians. It goes on and on and on. People like you, the Good Intentions Show, and we've just done Truth Barrier and Epoch Times. Who are their sponsors? Who are your sponsors? It's not Big Pharma.
Amen to that.
So you speak truthfully. And so it's the people that have got to change. Forget the media. You shouldn't be watching mainstream media. It's big. We've just seen it with Vaxxed II. People like you reporting the truth. The papers in England, big pharma-sponsored papers in England, have just done a big write-up on the film they haven't seen, saying it's been made by Andy Wakefield. It's all about MMR and vaccines don't cause autism. But they can get away with printing it. And out it goes. And people just go, there's bad people. I'm not watching that film. That's bad. People like you is, again, follow the money, follow the money. So people should be listening to you more than anybody else.
Well, I concur with you on that, Polly, and Anu. And so what other feedback have you heard from other links or other stories that you're hearing that are claiming that not to watch Vaxxed II and it hasn't even come out yet? That alone, you should go watch it, you know?
I think the Guardian did a hit piece. The Guardian did a hit piece. That's a UK paper. New York Times. I believe Vice did a hit piece on it. So listen, 90% of the media outlets in the United States are owned by 6 companies. So you know, it's not surprising at all that they would all be towing the same line.
And the amazing thing about it is these journalists are just paid to do a hit piece on Vaxxed II. So I got a call from this journalist, and he said, "I want to ask you a question. I think it's really irresponsible of you to go out and say the MMR is bad. The least you could do is at least advocate for the single measles vaccine. Why don't you give your son that?" I'm like, "Mate, you need to do your research. There is no single measles vaccine." So these people are doing, and he was like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?" And then he went and did his research, and he ended up not running the piece. These people are starting to think, even the baddies that are pharmaceutically sponsored, some of these young journalists are starting to think this is not making sense.
All right. So
I mean, the future is the independent journalist, because when you bring up the question, you know, people will be like, "Oh, you're right. Let me go look at it." But mainstream news, and it's going to start becoming a misnomer to call them mainstream, because let's be honest here. Social media, independent journalists, you know, people that are on YouTube, these type of people are actually becoming more mainstream than they're getting way more views and all that stuff. Nielsen ratings doesn't have anything on these people. Right. They don't get it that people are starting to look for their own information. And when documentaries like this are made, they are successful and people do watch them, because people have such a big distrust in what is mainstream news. And if you also think about it, like the articles that are coming out about, like, I think New York Post and stuff did an article. They did an article that essentially said that this film was Andy Wakefield's sequel to Vaxxed I. And that he's making this film and all this stuff. So if you think about it, they didn't even do enough research to find out that this isn't Andy Wakefield's. We're trusting these people to be journalists. They can't even go to one website and see who made the film. These are the people we're trusting. The fourth estate is completely gone, and it's gone all around the world, to be perfectly honest, because it's been corporatized and then it's been completely filled out with pharmaceutical money.
Polly, this is phenomenal information. This is literally, if everything you all say, and I know you believe to be true, is true and is our reality. This is crimes against humanity. This is beyond crimes, because now we're talking about not only your life at jeopardy, but your innocent, can't guard yourself, can't protect yourself, children at stake here. Okay, the CDC, the ADA, the FDA, now the media, we have no supporters out there. Okay, we got our doctors, all right? So why aren't the doctors out in the streets saying, I am not giving these vaccines anymore? Why the doctors continue? I just had my, I can't remember who it was, a friend of mine just told me the other day that the doctor was adamant, I think it was Shannon mentioned, the doctor was adamant, I mean, out of his way to make sure she gets the Gardasil kit for her teenagers. Oh my God. Gardasil shot for her teenagers. I mean, almost like, hey, back up, babe. What's going on, man, you know? And so why aren't the doctors out in the streets doing what you're all doing? I mean, across the board.
First of all, you need to know there are some really good doctors in this world. We know because we've met them and they came on the bus. Professors of ethics, people with the top of the top medical qualifications in the world. We've met them, and they have done the right thing. They have reported on what they've seen and how that this vaccine is possibly the biggest lie. It is the biggest lie ever told, and it's going to go on and on and on because we haven't sorted it yet. But yes, there are good medical. The rest of them, there is no excuse. I do not give these pediatricians a hall pass like everybody else is saying. Hall pass is one word, isn't it?
No.
Yeah, a pass. I don't give them a pass. I'll tell you why. Because you're on the front line. And if we can work it out and read an insert, then so can you. Because what you're getting is money. You're getting money to vaccinate a certain percentage of your clinic. That's why they say, you're not welcome in here if you're not vaccinated. Get out. Because if they take you, they don't get their bonus. And this, again, not conspiracy. We've had that doctor stand up and say, because he doesn't vaccinate now, he's lost nearly $1 million of profit from vaccinating his kids. But he'd rather do that
Yeah.
than be responsible for hurting people.
And look at the legislation too, right? The things that are happening, like for instance, in California, with SB 276 and AB 262. The way I see it, or at least the words that come to my mind, is that they're turning doctors into, medical vending machines. They're not professionals that you're going to, or experts for actual diagnoses or any of that. They're like, we're going to look at every single decision you make. You will have to get every single decision you make approved, and it has to be approved by this arbitrary third party, that's going to be doing the accreditation of these medical exemptions and stuff like that. So essentially what's happening is we're turning doctors into vending machines. Why do we even have experts anymore if we're just going to have a third party taking care of everything?
Okay, that's what I understand. I know there are good doctors out there, and I understand that, but they did an anonymous poll on pediatricians, and it came back, because they didn't have to say who they were, that 13% of the pediatricians give their kids vaccines. So if 13% of the doctors are not giving their kids, or 13% are not giving, 13% are giving their kids vaccines, right? Or
87%.
87. Thank you. 87 or not. Then what is the motivation? Why? I mean, they know the damage is harmful. Then why are they still doing it?
Can I point out something? And this is something that we know for a fact. Blue Cross Blue Shield pays doctors $400 per fully vaccinated child up to by the age 2, and I think it's 67% of their overall patient roster has to be fully vaccinated by the age of 2 for that to kick in. So for some of these doctors, you're talking about the difference between the beach house and the wife's car. This is a very for a decent sized practice. This is a significant amount, and I guarantee you that those doctors are not risking the chance of only having 68% of their patients vaccinated. They are going for 100% because that money is a big motivator. And then the other thing is that doctors are not taught in medical school about vaccines. They are not taught about injuries. They are simply told injuries don't happen. They are only taught what vaccines to give, when to give them, for what diseases. And that is the extent of their education. And I challenge you to find a doctor who has had more than a cursory overview of vaccinations, other than to teach them. One of the more important things that they think less important is letting a doctor know what a vaccine injury looks like and how to file a VAERS report. Much more important is to teach doctors how to deal with quote-unquote vaccine hesitant parents.
Okay, so if I was a doctor, can I just pull a vaccine off my shelf before I give it to my my patient, break it open, get it tested, and see what's in it?
There's some that have done that.
Okay.
Is
it legal for them to do that? Can they do that? Or is there something like they can't
they've bought the vaccine. I don't see what.
All right. So it's basically money, and they got to pay their debt off, or what's going on. But can they? So is there actually other reasons why there's so many are understand how damage is and they still do it? It seems like these are on the front line. These are our doctors. These are the ones that we trust. We don't trust the third-party insurance companies. We don't know them. We don't know CDC, or we don't know who's working in the media. But we do know our doctor. It seems like they be held more accountable than anyone else in this process.
Well, I mean, look at the psychology of the dogma there, right? Is that there's a lot of these doctors that you're saying that do see the injury, but they think they have been taught that the chance of getting the quote vaccine preventable disease is way worse than the injuries that are happening. They believe so in their soul that it's way worse for the thing that they're preventing to happen than the injuries that are happening. I mean, we've met these doctors. They say this stuff. They believe these things. And on top of that, there's this thing that gets pushed out all the time. Oh, well, if it happens, it's rare. I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we can get into. But like, if you think about the idea or the logic behind saying it's rare, let's really think about that, right? If you're saying it's rare, then you're saying that it could happen. that it does happen and it could happen. If it could happen, then there's a chance that it'll happen to you. And if there's a chance, then what you're really doing when you vaccinate is you're gambling. Now, you will not be able to find a parent that if you say to them, are you willing to gamble, if you use that word, gamble the health of your child for this thing that you don't even know? People don't like the word gamble, but if you say rare, it sounds like, oh, well, it's rare.
Right. And now the gamble's odds are now 1 in 42. So they're getting lower and lower. The gamble percentage is getting worse every day.
Autism, though.
That's for autism.
It's 1 in 20 children.
Say something, and this to me very
seizures.
important. I'm just going to say it the way it is. I think the most dangerous people in the world to date right now are pediatricians and family doctors. They are nothing short of pharmaceutical sales reps. And that is the truth, because we hear it from the parents. You will go in there with your sick child with a sniffle or a cough or whatever it may be. They will vaccinate your child because they don't care that your child's sick at that time, and they will give you some kind of medication. Please, people, stay away from pediatricians, and please stay away from family practice doctors. There's a lot of good doctors out there that are into natural alternatives. You do not need to be pumping these chemicals and poisons into your children. And if you do, you will end up with a child like mine, or worse, dead.
Well,
that's the way it is.
Well, probably I like that straight talk, because I think people sometimes need to hear that directness. Otherwise, they're just like they'll rationalize it and say, oh, well, maybe not my child, but you are playing Russian roulette apparently. But what I don't understand, or I do understand, but why maybe you all could explain. But they do give you a pamphlet and they say it's rare, but could happen. They could get brain damage. They could do all this. But why don't they mention that all vaccine damage, on some level, you were being damaged for the rest of your life for the most part? If that's what's accurate.
First of all, can I just touch on one more thing about the psychology of the doctors?
Yeah.
And this is not to give them a pass in any way, because I'll be the first person to say fire your pediatrician and pull your kids out of the public school system, because those are the two levers that they use on us, is the doctors and the schools. But I want you to imagine just for a moment that you go into medicine because you want to help heal and you want to care for children. So you choose pediatrics as your field of practice. And then at some point along the line, you start to wake up and realize, wait a minute, hold on a second. Is it possible that I could be harming children instead of healing them? That creates a complete crisis for that doctor. We're talking career suicide if they dare to speak out about what they're seeing. We are talking, well, just for a note, 400 doctors every single year. For those of you out there who think doctors don't commit suicide, 400 doctors commit suicide every year. So for a doctor to wake up and realize he's causing more harm, he or she is causing more harm than healing, that is a complete crisis for them. It is a crisis of conscience. It's a crisis. And I think that for a good percentage of them, they shut down.
They're in denial.
They are in complete denial.
Okay, cry me a big river on this one. They've injured and killed so many of our children. And you can, guess what? Here's what you can do. If you're a doctor saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? All right, we forget how we're going to pay our bills because our children are dead or injured. But let's just help you out a little bit here. Go write a book about how you saw the light and the truth, because everyone's going to buy it. You're going to make a lot of money. Or be like Andy Wakefield, go and be a film director and make films about the terrible thing that's been going on out there. Whatever you do, if you decide you still want to be a doctor, then carry on. Just don't vaccinate, and every single one of this community will come see you because you're honest. So there is life after you realize that you've done wrong. You will be forgiven, but just stop now.
All right.
There is no excuse.
All right. And I'm not going backwards, but I want your talking points. What do you tell the people when you hear it often? And I know my talking points, but when they say the herd mentality, well, if you don't vaccinate, my kid will be in danger of vaccinations. I know you don't want to say it, but what's your quick answer for the folks who are never...
You mean herd immunity, the myth?
Yes, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, which is a real simple one, because if you do complicated, people don't understand.
Yeah, go ahead.
But real simple. Think about this. So you're going to vaccinate your child so that it goes to school and everybody's all vaccinated and you're all protected. That's lovely. But then after school, you're going to pick your child up and you're going to take your child to the shopping mall where it's going to mix with people like us. Majority of the people in this world are not up to date. So oops, well, how does that all work? It don't make sense. That's a simple thing. And people go, oh, yeah, you're right.
Well,
so that's a simple one. I'm sure Tia's about to go technically deeper.
If your vaccine works, then why are you worried about whether or not I'm vaccinated? This is the equivalent of me telling Polly that she has to take the birth control pill so I don't get pregnant.
Right. Well, some argument may be that the booster runs out of time and you got to get another shot, and they may catch you at that time when you're not getting the shot.
It's all nonsense.
I came from an era where my mother took me to get measles at a party, and if you didn't catch the measles, it was really upsetting because you kind of let everybody down because you need to catch it at that age. And we've gone from that to 1 MMR from my first child. My third child now we're on to 2 MMRs. When's it going to stop? The vaccine doesn't work.
Right.
That's actually a really good point you bring up about the booster shots. Okay, so if these things are supposed to be, and once again, another misnomer, an immunization, right? If you're going to get that, then you should become immune. If you're not becoming immune and you need these booster shots, that means there's a period of time where you are not immune. You are no longer protected. So we've ruined actual herd immunity because people aren't getting natural immunity anymore. So there's people running around who are due for their quote boosters, right? And they're not getting them. And so they're running around totally unprotected. They don't have natural immunity because they never got, measles, mumps, or rubella, or whatever. And they're the ones going around infecting people. And not only that, there's tons of reports coming out now that the people that are actually getting the measles are getting the vaccine strain. They're not even getting
they're spreading that with the people. They're spreading to the people who don't have the vaccine. So it's almost doing the opposite. This is so upside down. It's almost mind-boggling, honestly. But the number one important thing I want to say here, with the time we have left, is Vaxxed II is coming out next weekend all around the country, and you can mention when and where. But what's going to be, Polly? What's going to be the takeaway when people come back from watching this movie? What's going to be the impact here?
Well, the one thing you're going to learn, you're going to learn a lot of things, but one of the most important things that the new parents, don't forget this film is not meant for us. We all know the deal with vaccines. It's meant for those parents that we used to be. So you will know by the end of this film that if you vaccinate your baby or anybody you love, they may well die. They can die, and a lot of people have died. So you will learn that. So whoever knew that, you will learn that if you don't vaccinate, your child will be supremely healthy. And can I just say, I did see in the British press yesterday, they said that Vaxxed II filmmakers are extremely dangerous people because of what this film is doing, people are going to die of measles, and it will be our fault. Wow. Can I just say something? You're missing a big point here. People are dying from the vaccine against measles, and you're not reporting that. All you're talking about is what if we allow this film to go out, people may die. Well, first of all, you took our natural immunity away. We were doing real well when I was a little girl, and you've messed that all up. So when the world wakes up to vaccines and they do stop vaccinating, yes, we will have measles and things back. That is going to happen. And because you took our natural immunity away, people may die. They may. But nowhere near as many people will die of the measles as they have died already of the vaccine.
We know how to handle measles, and what I think is inherent in the statements that they're making and the big fear, and you hear this over and over and over again, anti-vaxxers spread dangerous misinformation. They're causing real harm with this misinformation, and people might take this information from these anti-vaxxers and stop vaccinating, and that could cause harm. Why don't we just stop right there? If people hear this information, they may stop vaccinating. If they have a brain, okay, they may stop vaccinating. Full stop. What is this information that we are sharing that is so powerful that it can overcome the recommendations of the CDC?
Right.
Every pediatrician practically in the country,
the media, all
of the schools, the media, the talking heads, the celebrities, and the garbage that they are putting out there. And mind you, we anti-vaxxers do not have this budget. We are not getting rich off of this film. And we don't have the doctors pushing our information. We don't have the CDC putting out press releases every single day about this information. And yet, this information is so powerful, it may cause people to stop vaccinating. That right there is what you should be focused on. What is it that we're sharing that is so powerful that it can overcome the greatest behemoth in this country, the most powerful entity that buys our politicians and our doctors and our regulatory agencies completely bought. I think the numbers come out, it's $300,000 per member of Congress per year is what the pharmaceutical industry spends. And that is just in our federal government. That is not counting the state houses where we have people like Dr. Senator Richard Pan pushing this vaccine mandates. So what is this information that us anti-vaxxers have that's so powerful that without the budget and without all this huge, massive force behind us, we can get people to stop vaccinating?
Right. Beware the magical truth serum, right? Like, what is it that's doing it to these?
So fascinating. So with that being said, and we'll end, not right now, but in a little bit, maybe we'll even carry over if we can for a minute or two. We'll go off FM, but we'll be on the internet. But I do want to get specifically, what will they see in this movie that you can share now, and what will they walk away with knowing that they didn't know from the first movie?
Okay, so yes, you're gonna find out that you can die from a vaccine, and that SIDS is reported by the parents is vaccine injury. You're gonna find out that the Gardasil is the most dangerous vaccine on the market.
And Gardasil's for what? HPV?
Gardasil HPV vaccine. You will anybody who watches that film and goes and gives their daughter or anybody the Gardasil HPV vaccine is literally insane. After what you've just watched, I have to tell you, it's extremely graphic, this film. There is a picture of a 20-year-old girl that has died from the Gardasil vaccine, the one in vaccine court. So that's why it's on there. And that is it's a horrific picture. It looks like something from Chernobyl or something.
It's
it's
bad.
A toxic death. So please, parents, go and watch this film on your own, then decide if you want your children to watch that film. You will learn about the health of the unvaccinated versus it was the People's Vaxxed Unvaxxed study. So you will learn all of those things, but most importantly for me, you will also learn that not one member of the medical profession told us that there was any training whatsoever done for them on vaccines, and certainly none on vaccine safety. So you have been lied to.
So
they will tell you that.
So if people want to get tickets now, because this is playing all over the country, people want to get tickets now, they go to...
This is the Atlanta show.
In Atlanta, you go to vaxhoax.com /peeps. / peeps. Vaxhoax.com / peeps. And there's a code there for $10 off. A code is good intentions. So put that in there. And can somebody mention it on the Facebook link too, what the code is as well, in addition to? So that here in Atlanta.
Right. And if you're anywhere else in the country, you go to vaxxed2.com. That's vaxxed with the number 2.com, and click where it says tickets. And it should populate based on your location. But and by the way, if you have any trouble on mobile has been wonky. So if you have any trouble on mobile, go on your computer to do this. But you're going to look, it's going to populate with your area. If it doesn't pull up your area, go where it says change location, put your city, your zip in there, and it'll give you the closest screenings to you. Reserve your tickets. November 6th is the date for most of those. There are a few other dates further out, but the big release date is November 6th. Vaxxed2, the number 2.com.
Well, and the bus is going to be in Atlanta too.
Yes, the bus will be in Atlanta.
So if they want to sign the bus, they come to Atlanta. They can sign the bus on Saturday, Sunday, November 9th and 10th.
Correct.
Now, and the UI Media Network will be out there too, covering that as well. But I will say this though, if you guys can stay over for a few minutes, we're gonna. I want to talk about some preventions outside of not taking it. What are some things you can do to assist your child or assist yourself in perhaps getting rid of these types of vaccines, metals, whatever they're putting into that? Because I think that's important for people to know there is hope even after this type of damage is being done, or at least somewhat hope, maybe.
Well, the best medicine is prevention.
Prevention, of course.
Okay.
And we'll talk about all that. Do you have like 5-10 minutes?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so, guys, we're going to sign off now on WTTA 101.2 and also signing off, guys, on 99.1 at WDJY. Guys, if you want to come listen, go to our app, uimediaapp.com. It's still on live now. Also, it's coming in a lead right now. And also go to Facebook as well, as live as in addition to, and you catch up on YouTube later on. Again, if you guys want tickets, type in there right now on any of the apps or on Facebook. Type in Vaxxed II, and we know you want a ticket, especially if you're in Atlanta, like UI Media Network on Facebook as well, and you have a chance to win these tickets, free tickets. So, Okay, this is so disturbing, guys. So disturbing. It's like what's so obvious. It's in our face, but nobody sees it. It's almost like a magician. It's, you know, watch the left hand and while the right hand's doing the other thing. It's so pervasive everywhere. Vaccines from being born on, and everyone's so adamant about it. They really almost got such wrong information. If what you're saying is all true, that it is a crime against humanity. I mean, literally. People back in the day not only would be tarred and feathered, but they would be strung up on the nearest building, whatever it may be, for trying to harm our children, right? But it's not happening because of these reasons we mentioned earlier, from the media, the doctors, the government agencies, the big cover-up, and it leaves it to citizens like yourselves. I mean, you guys are citizens, mothers, fathers, who are dealing with, not all, but some are dealing with vaccine damaged children that are more obvious, right? Maybe not the unobvious. So you've had to learn some ways that you could do to handle your children, how to deal after the fact that you've gone through the vaccination, you didn't know, you're ignorant about it. The guilt the mothers must feel and the fathers must feel after they learn about this and what they did is probably off the chart. I don't know how you can even address it, but there must be some solutions outside of number one being preventative. What do you guys got?
Diet.
Yeah, diet.
Key.
Yeah.
Diet is a thing. And, you know, as a parent, when you hear that, you're just like, oh, I can't. Because it's so annoying that now the whole family has to be organic, gluten-free, no added sugar. And it's a pain. But I'll tell you what, it's one of the best things. And I don't care whether you've got autism or whatever you've got, everybody should eat pure. You should spend all your money, whatever you're earning, it should all go on food, because there is nothing more important than what the food that you put into your mouth. We've seen that in these children. I will tell you this, and I know that people don't like me saying this, but this is the way it is. I'm going to tell you the way it is. The minute you put that needle into yourself or your child, there is no going back. Now, you can improve the quality of life, and some people say they've recovered their child. Whatever. You will never have that child or yourself back to how you were before, that moment that you put that vaccine in. So we can talk all we like about how you can improve it, but don't think, I've heard people say this, oh, I'm just going to go and get that vaccine. My kid needs to go to school and I'll just deal with whatever damage is. I'll just mop the damage up afterwards.
Yeah, I'll just clean it up later. Like it just doesn't work, you know? It really doesn't. I mean,
Hey, buddy,
the people, if you think that you can somehow be like, oh, if something goes wrong, I'll fix it, then you probably never done any kind of troubleshooting in any other world in the world. Like even some, like what I do tech stuff, right? There comes a time where honestly you have to uninstall everything on a computer and install it from scratch. You can't do that with a human being. You can't restart the DNA. You cannot restart a human being. You just can't do it.
Well, this is incredible. I know we got to wrap this up, so I just want to say thank you all for what you're doing every day with getting the word out, and I'm so grateful. And all the mothers and fathers out there, I'm not going to speak on behalf of everyone, but I'd say everyone out there who does know what's going on is so grateful for having this next movie coming out, Vaxxed II. And again, you guys can catch that in theaters around the country as well as here in Atlanta, guys. Go to vaxhoax.com/peeps. Put in the code for $10 off right now. Put in the code Good Intentions, and you have a chance to enjoy and learn for the first time. If you haven't, bring your friends. What's really going on with this agenda with the vaccines? Tia, Anu, Polly, thank you guys so much for everything you're doing. Any last words? I'll give you all one, like a minute each. If you want any last words you want to share with anyone out there who perhaps just waking up to this type of situation. Polly.
I just want to say, please do not make them. So everyone calls us anti-vaxxers, whatever. We don't deserve that title. I'll tell you why. Because we all vaccinated our children, and we all have horror stories. Please learn from us. We're here to warn you. We're not here to fight you. We're literally here to warn you.
New.
Oh, Nick. Okay. I would like to say that if you're listening to, and if at any point you think it's scientific consensus, as soon as you hear that word, if you hear the word consensus next to science in any shape or form ever, know that it is a complete logical fallacy. There's no such thing as scientific consensus. That's not how science works. That's all I have to say.
Tia?
I do want to say one thing about the topic that we were just touching on about how to fix the problem because if you're out there and you've already vaccinated yourself, you've already vaccinated your children, and you're sitting there going, oh God, what am I going to do now? Paulie talked about diet. Diet is incredibly important. We're not in any position, we're not doctors, we're not, in any position to tell you how to handle the vaccine injury. But what I will say is that if you are vaccinated, your immune system is never going to work the way that God designed it to work. You are always going to need to support your immune system, your children's immune systems. So you are going to need to very clean diet, organic. I can't stress enough. Glyphosate is the other thing that we think is very, very, very closely tied with autism. Stephanie Seneff did research on this, and it is destroying our guts. So you have the vaccines destroying the guts, you have the glyphosate destroying the guts. So you have to clean up your diet and you have to support your immune system because it's never going to work the way that God designed it to. But there are a lot of amazing things that can be done to help our children. So please get involved. Go to Vaxxed II somewhere in the country and find the people who are hosting that screening and talk to them and say, I have an injured child. Please help me connect with a good chiropractor, naturopath, homeopath, somebody who is working with these children, because I can't tell you what to do. Every child is different. Every single person that's injured is injured differently. The same factors, but their body may respond differently. So I can't tell you what supplements to take or how to do it. But find someone in your area that is connected in with this cause, because they're going to have connections to doctors in your area. They're going to, at least, if nothing else, you'll find other mothers. Listen, doctors are great, but I'll tell you who's figuring out how to fix our kids. It's the moms. We're the ones that are figuring it out. Most of the things I've done with my son to help my son with his autism have been taken from advice from other moms who have walked down the road before this. So get connected up with the people in your area who are in this fight. You're going to find great resources there.
Wonderful.
And go to places like Autism One, conferences
Autism One, yes.
Yeah.
That's legit. Well, guys, thank you so much. And speaking of eating clean diet, T has to feed her child a clean diet here in a minute. So we got to sign off. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you share this all over the place. Get on there. This is just the beginning, guys. And make sure you spend your time the next weekend going to this event and supporting that. And even if you don't have an autistic child, or somebody who has a vaccine damage, but you know it to be true, get out there and support as many people we possibly can. Thank you all. Don't forget, we got Women Who Want Conference coming up this weekend. We'll be there too. UI Media will be there too, covering that. So see you there, guys. Take care. Adios.
Bye.
You have been listening to The Good Intention Show on the UI Radio Network. The Good Intention Show is sponsored by the United Intentions Foundation at unitedintentions.org. Look for us on Blog Talk, Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, Player FM, and many more. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram under United Intentions, and on Twitter at Higher Intention. Be sure to log on to unitedintentions.org, a virtual community where you learn to create, track, and manifest your passions, one intention at a time. Have a wonderful day, and until next time, live life with intent. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.